use my affiliate link to support the channel down in the description. Hey, what's up, guys? MetaGamesGX here. And who do we have here with us today?
My name is Kevin Garcia. I went X-1 with Brandon DESPIA at the YCS Las Vegas and made day 2. Our final placement as a team, though, was 35th. We were a tie away from getting into that top 16 consideration, but I played Brandon DESPIA and it performed extremely well.
Hell yeah, you did very well. And I really wanted to cover it because there weren't any Brand Despia lists in Top Cut. There were a few people who came close, including yourself. You came very close. So, and you have a killer list here, and you were in my community already. So I definitely had to make sure to cover your deck profile, brother. And before we get into the deck, your matchups, and your team, are there any shoutouts that you would like to give or any plugs?
Yeah, so I'd like to shout out my 2 teammates, Gage and Dawson. They are amazing men. I would not have done this trip without anybody but them. They were amazing as teammates, even though our player B, Gage, went like 2-8. He was still super supportive and just one of the best guys I know. So it was amazing to go on a trip with him. And our friend Dawson, who was player C, also carried extremely well, and I'm also really proud of them. It was Dawson's first ever YCS, and he went 7-2-1. And wow. I'm really proud of him.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then for another shout out is to my friend Braden. He recently got into a car accident on the way back from YCS Las Vegas, and he's facing an uphill battle with recovery right now. And if you guys can keep him in your thoughts and prayers, I'd really appreciate that. He's one of the best dudes I know in my life, and it's just super unfortunate circumstances that happened to him, but I know things are on the up and up for him.
For sure. We're going to keep Brandon in your thoughts and prayers, and really want to thank you for even sharing his story. And, you know, we wish him a easy road to recovery. With that being said, well, we do have your list here. It is a 43 card main deck. And I guess we can just start out with the main deck monsters if you want to go card by card and just maybe explain your choices and like on the like, you know, on like branded view, or you know, you feel like explaining on whatever cards you'd like to, and I'll ask questions as we go.
Yeah, so with the monster count, I kept it to 15. I think branded, as far as monster counts for branded goes, I think 15 is very much the standard. It ranges, I think, anywhere from 15 to 19. And then if you're playing more of within like 43 cards, like relative to that number, but I feel like if you play more than 50 cards, you definitely up the monster count for maximum consistency. So for the monsters, I play the one Albion, which everybody kind of knows. I only play one just because I never want to see multiples of him ever, because I don't play Brendan in high spirits, and he's definitely one of the better targets to get off loss. But he's also like, I think a really good skill test for a good branded player is to determine how good you are with Albion and how resourceful you can make him. Just because not in this deck, he can not only ditch Branded Retribution, which is definitely the best card you can ditch for him, but he can also ditch Branded Opening, which in the Fire matchup can actually come up a lot.
Huge.
And then the next one is definitely 3 Owlbear. I always want to have the opportunity to play in Branded Despia. I know one of the memes is like Branded Despia bricks a lot, but I always wanted the opportunity to play. Double Cartesia is definitely, I think, pretty standard in most lists. So is the Tragedy. I don't play Ad Libitum, because I wanted to give myself an opportunity to always go second, and I feel like Ad Lib never really did that for me. It was just more of a going first card and or a brick. And then I played the Maximus and the 3 Fallen of Albaz. So I'll get to the Maximus later, but I played the 3 Fallen of Albaz. I don't think that's in contention. I've always been 3 Fallen of Albaz guy, no matter what. I played double Quem, the double Mirror Jade, and then, so I guess like the bricks of the deck, but not really, are the Gimmick Puppet and the Maximus. I played Nadir Servant because in this deck, I always assume Branded Fusion's going to get ashed. Like, I always just assume so. And Andre Torres kind of made a comment about that in his video at the UDS, where when Branded Fusion resolves, sometimes I don't know what to do because I never expected to get that far.
It feels
And
like you're
then
getting off easy when you don't get ash.
yeah, the game's just a lot easier, but it's just like sometimes you're a little like struck because you're like, oh, like what do I do now? Like I didn't expect this to resolve because whenever I have an opening hand of 5, I always just like think of, okay, what do I do after Brain Infusion gets ashed? Is always my thought process.
Did you
And
like the
so,
double quem?
oh, I did love Double Clem. Double Clem, I think I got this from Chase. He was actually on your profile. He actually did a profile of you like a couple weeks ago. And Clem, honestly, it's weird. It's the best card, but it doesn't do anything by itself.
Yeah, so without ad lib, like you didn't miss the ad lib line at all because in my experience, I feel like double quem is just fine. Like quem is a better card than it's not like ad lib in your hand versus quem in your hand. Quem is a bit, it can at least get you somewhere if you have another extender. So I don't know how you felt about ad lib not being
absolutely.
there.
And Clem with any of your one of the amazing things I loved about Branded, and it's really interesting because I play 43 cards, but you'll see brand lists that are 45, 50, if you're crazy, sometimes 60. But the thing about Branded is it's very consistent because you play 3 of every single card. And if you know your lines of play, any 2 card combinations can like really get you pretty far.
Yep.
And so double Quem just came up a lot because double Quem like helps you in the grind game. And that's another skill test for a Branded player is how well he uses Quem. Like people, this tournament did not know you can bring back like Mirror Jade with Clem.
Yup. I had that coming at my regional too.
Yeah, and then the Maximus, I know some people are indifferent about Maximus, but the Nadir Servant Maximus is the best line when Branded Fusion gets ashed. And more so than Thrust into Fusion Dupe. And there were plenty of times this entire tournament where I drew Branded Fusion, Thrust, and like Nadir Servant. And I'm like, I have 2 ways of playing through getting ashed. Like it was insane the entire weekend. Like I love Nadir Servant, and it also really helps with the side deck patterns because in Chase's profile, I actually got inspired by him. It's the easiest going second side out options.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just ask you before we get too deep into things. Did you have anything in the monsters that you kind of missed or anything like that? Like maybe second Mercury, or you were really happy with the monster lineup?
Yeah, so I saw the second Mercury rise in popularity a lot. And I've seen people go double and triple Albion. But the problem I have with the double and triple Albion is like we've all drawn 2 of them in our opening hand and just cringed. And I feel like in order to maximize Albion in your hand, you have to play Brandon and High Spirits in order to make it really good. But as far as the monster counts go, it felt really good to me. I definitely, out of my teammates, I definitely had the most consistent hands. I never bricked. I know people look at the gimmick puppet and they're like, that's win more. But my logic was like, if I go first, though, I'm winning.
Yes.
And like, why would I not play 1 card just to make it easier to win going first? And the thing about drawing the puppet is you actually skip a step when you see it in your hand anyway.
Yes, it's actually good in your hand because you can just go like Lubalion, pitch it, or like Cartesia to send it. It's actually just skips a step, like you said, gives you an extra.
Yeah, and then the second Mercurier definitely, I definitely see the rise in popularity of that one. I personally never missed the second one, maybe like a couple of times, but I felt like the deck was fine just the way it was. I felt like I only missed the second Mercurier when I didn't do resource management very well. Yeah, so and then I played 3 Branded Fusion, 3 Branded Opening, the Brandon Red, the Brandon and Lost. So I guess a quick comment is I did think about a second Brandon in Red because I did see the rise in popularity with that, with Nightfall specifically, the DB Warrior. But one of the things I didn't like about it was it's one of those resource managements where like if you're using a second one, you've probably already won the game or you're like losing to the point where it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so you didn't quite miss it, essentially.
Never. And then the Called by, the Foolish Burial are just consistency pieces and are opportunities to go first. The Nadir Servants are the best plan B along with the Thrust and to go when your Ash gets branded fusion. The fusion deployments were amazing all day. Cartasia is just absolutely nuts because it invalidates like the hand trap meta, which is like the Imperm and the Veilers.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then for my going second cards, I used Droplets and Super Poly, and those were by far the best cards of the entire weekend. And it's not even close.
Yeah, maybe you can get some specific instances when we get to when we cover your matchups. But I will. How did you like Droplet overall? Did you ever regret it?
Droplets I liked more than Super Poly because Droplets felt really amazing setting first because one of the interactions I learned on the fly when I was playing in my matchups was if you have Mirror Jade that hasn't been used and you have Quem, you can go so the typical Snake Eyes combo is like always Ash, add Ponix, summon, go into Link Karibo. And one thing I realized you can do, and I did a lot, was you can go Mirror Jade effect, banish the Link Karibo, chain Droplets, negate the Ash, or like another monster on their board, and then on res, bring back with Quem the Mirror Jade that you sent for Droplets, and then use Mirror Jade again.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's a nice interaction to just keep looping Mirror Jade and get more value.
Yeah, and a lot of people, maybe because Brandon was out of touch for a lot of people, didn't realize that Mirror Jade was a soft once per turn, or what the text box like mentions Fallen of Albaz meant.
Yes, no, that's for sure something that comes up a lot. And you like Super Poly overall?
I did like Super Poly. I definitely and actually it worked really, really well with the side deck patterns that we can talk about a little bit later. But Super Poly was amazing because if you're going second, there's always a value. You may not necessarily fuse with two of their monsters, but you always have an opportunity to fuse with one of yours and one of theirs, and that came up pretty frequently.
Fair enough. And then we have the Thrust package. Did you like that?
The Thrust package was amazing. I loved playing 3 of it. I love the talents as well too. The talents just added a little bit of like flexibility to what it could be. It's a good going first card, it's a good going second card, and then the duplication was probably like, except it's weird though because the thing about duplication is you never mind hard drawing it though.
Yes, I agree.
Like if you like, I'm not saying play 2 fusion duplications, but if I saw a list that did, I wouldn't be annoyed at it, if that makes sense.
I'd understand. It actually feels infinitely free whenever you open it.
Yeah, and then the retribution is pretty standard. So the 43 main deck was like really consistent. I never bricked. I always had an opportunity to play, especially going second. I guess one of the things that is very different from my list than others is I don't play the Sornier and the Lubellions.
Oh yeah. Did you miss
I didn't
them?
like those cards. They're amazing cards, and I totally understand why people play them, but I think they're only great if you're already playing the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and I see them as cards to like basically just get you into the loss. And Brand of Loss is like one of the best cards in your deck by far. But I didn't want cards that like only worked if I was already comboing, and I didn't ever like them drawing them going second, and I always wanted an opportunity to win going second.
And just in testing, they weren't very good going second for you. Presumably.
Yeah, they weren't good, very, very good going second, and trying to establish Lost under like going second in order to break a board was just way too complicated and like just way too out there that I just ultimately decided to cut them to increase the likelihoods of seeing like fusion deployment with a Super Poly and like a Droplet or like a brand of fusion, because fusion deployment, summon Albaz, activate Super Poly came up a lot this weekend, and it cooked.
Did you ever miss running more talents?
I didn't ever miss running talents. There was one game that I drew talents. I felt like going first, and I don't know if you watched the live stream, but I very much had that Hani moment of I just won the game. Like, this is the most ridiculous hand I've ever seen in my life. It was Aluber, Branded Fusion, Called By, Talents, and the Dear Servant. And Wait. It was like, it was the most absurd hand I've ever seen in my entire life. And like I looked at my teammate, and my teammate like just was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I proceeded to win that match, of course. But yeah, missed, never really wanted more talents, but I definitely might consider in the future maybe going 2 thrust, 2 talents, just to see if I like that a little bit more. Because talents, looking at your opponent's hand when you're playing branded, especially in future formats, in this future format, might be good because I do expect a rise in popularity with Bestials.
Yeah, I've been like you already see them creeping back into the side decks. I think over the weekend. So
Yeah.
I guess we can get into the extra deck then. You have a pretty, I guess like standard extra deck, but you do have a couple of spicy things such as a main deck masquerade. Maybe you can just lay out your
So I played
choices.
the extra deck. I do think for the most part is pretty standard. I know some people. I know Andre Torres specifically didn't play Super Poly because not Super Poly, didn't play Garura because he didn't like Super Polying a Snake Eyes board into Garura, because he is right. Like sending both Ash and Poplar to the graveyard under Super Poly is like kind of cringe. It doesn't do a lot. Or the Flamebird, they just
Yeah.
+4. But it was the best target for Nadir Servant, and that's why I personally did it. So I played the W Albion, the Sanctifier, the Cortes, the Granganol, the Guardian Chimera, which I'm gonna be honest was I only went into it once. I'm not saying it's cuttable, but there are opportunities to explore other avenues. And then I played the Masquerade. The Masquerade did come up a lot, but not in the sense of time. But what happened a lot in this deck is, if you've played Branded before, Branded Fusion is a board breaker. Like you resolve Branded Fusion, like you're breaking boards, like by itself. And the thing I realized that came up a lot in testing was if you broke their board, dealt a bunch of damage, which with Branded is not that hard to do. Them climbing back into a game under Masquerade is really difficult, especially with the Snake Eyes Fire King deck or Snake Eyes in general, because they activate way too many effects to climb back into the game.
Totally makes sense. You might not even need a gimmick lock under certain circumstances like that.
Yeah, and only once did it come up where I made it to like kind of pressure my opponent in time, where it's like you can pass, but then I just beat you,
Yep.
kind of thing. But that is a situation that came up a lot and was a great like end piece, because like it created a lot of pressure for these decks when I would clear their board and they have to play back into the Masquerade.
You did not regret it being in your your main extra deck though, right? Because I've always been someone who's put in the side, but like I've been seeing more like it's nice to put that pressure on in the games 1 and 2 when they're down to 3,000 or something.
Yeah, and it was like 3,000's like that special number where like you're just activating so many effects, and like I generally have like a Mirror Jade Banish, a Guardian Chimera, and then like they generally never do optimal lines of play because they have a constant pressure of I have to pay 600 life points for everything I do.
Totally makes sense. And then
Yeah, and then I played the double Mirror Jade, the Mud Dragon. That guy is insane. I played the Dragostapelia. It didn't come up a lot, but I did play against the Kashtira. So this is your, I get shifted. I summon this guy. Please don't kill me. And then, because I didn't play Dragoon, because I watch your videos and I thought Dragoon going second. It just doesn't come up. Don't play Dragoon. It's not good.
completely agree. I was on it for a bit too long, and now I'm off of it.
And then I played the Rimbrum, which is insane because Mirror Jade. When you have Mirror Jade and Rimbrum, and you go Mirror Jade effect negate, like effect to send for cost, but then Rimbrum negate bounce their monster is like an insane interaction that a lot of people didn't expect.
Oh, you ended up doing that a couple times. Nice.
Oh yeah, I did. And then Titaniclad for the Quem. I love the extra deck. I went into every single card at least once. The only thing I could maybe consider changing is I did see a rise in 2 Granganols,
Yes.
and I don't necessarily know what to cut for it. Is like the problem with it. I like the Chimera. I never really go into, but the logic I have with 2 Granganol is it just makes puppet locking a lot easier.
No Lulu Wall Lilith needed.
Yeah, I never needed it. Clem was always the monster I wanted to summon in end phase anyway. Never really wanted to summon anything else. But yeah, I want to experiment with a second Granganol. I just don't know what card I'd cut for it. I really love the Masquerade, but I could maybe consider cutting that. But like I said, it's not necessarily a time card, but it is. But it's more so of like it creates pressure when they're trying to bounce back into a game.
Totally makes sense. Maybe it could go in the side, but who knows at that point.
Yeah.
So how did you? So you have some interesting stuff in the side deck. I guess we could go like less spicy to spicy. Did you like the Nibiru no droll? I see.
Yeah. So Nibiru, I beat a lot. I 2-out a lot of people. So Nibiru never really came up, but the logic with Nibiru was I would always take out the Super Polys going first because I don't like Super Poly as a going first card. I do love Droplets as a going first card. And Nibiru is another layer of interruption that they have to do going into a branded board because most people never expected hand traps.
Yeah, and like you can tribute your board a lot easier on your own terms. So
yeah, absolutely. And it never really came up, but in testing, it was really, really good because they know no decks right now, especially the meta decks, really have Omni negates like present. So it's not like Nibiru wasn't ever going to resolve, and especially with how much monster removal I have with the Mirror Jade, the potential Super Polys, the Droplets, like the fusing their monsters away. Like Nibiru was always going to resolve, and it was always going to have a high impact. And then your clapback is just so much better.
And you didn't miss the drolls?
I didn't miss the drolls. I felt like we didn't respect Mana Diem this tournament at all, but we had the Super Poly and Droplets just in case. I felt like every deck that could wombo combo and was really good, Super Poly and Droplets kind of answered. And we've noticed in testing, and especially after this weekend, if people saw the live streams, that Droll is very hit or miss with a lot of the meta decks, especially against pure Snake Eyes. It's horrible. Like, they full combo you anyway. And against Fire King, if they're good, like, they still know how to combo you anyway. So we never felt like Droll was really good. I know the Voiceless deck can get hurt by it a bit, but as a person who tested that deck, because that was one of the decks I considered playing for the event, it never felt like when I got Drolled in Voiceless, it mattered a lot. Like, I felt like I was still able to play, even if I got
really?
Drolled, and it felt like a -1.
Yeah, okay. Because I've heard some people say side and droll against that deck. I guess it's not really that good. Use my filling.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like if you side Droll against Braindead Chimera, if they start with like Mirror Sword and then add their 2 cards off like Berfament, and then you Droll them, they still hand rip you for another one anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's very hit or miss with the impact. Like, there are some hands that I guess Droll could be really good against the Voiceless deck for. I just felt like I didn't want to play Droll against that deck. Plus, we inherently have an amazing matchup against that deck. Like, I had a Voiceless player Maximus effect, and I'm like, oh, we're cooking now. It's over.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So no Droll missed. I think that's an interesting. I think that could free up like a lot of slots in our side deck actually if we start dropping Droll. Because like you said, I don't think it's that great right now. But did you like the Cosmics? Obviously, it's just it's a staple this format.
Yeah, and it's a staple, and against the Fire King deck, it's pretty good where you're able to Cyclone, because they don't play the field spell, the Snake Eyes field spell, so you're able to pop Island or the monster they summon back off Flamebirch, which is generally the Masquerena or the Island. So it came up a lot of interactions with that. So I guess I can tie the Cyclones with the Evenlies. We expected personally a lot of anti-spell fragrance this tournament, and with the Cyclones and the Evenlies, like, I was never losing to anti-spell. Like, I am drawing one of those cards.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And did you like the soul releases?
Oh, they were amazing. The thing about the Snake Eyes Fire King deck is they do have a way of playing around Super Poly, which they just dump a bunch of their monsters into their graveyard in order to ensure the follow-up. Like, the Salmon Great, the Raging Phoenix, the Prometheus Princess, they just load up their graveyard and play around the Super Poly. But then the problem is it plays directly into Soul Release.
So what were your targets usually with Soul Release?
It was always a case by case, but generally it was always like the Link monsters, because I never really cared about them getting their resources back. So it was generally like the Promethean Princess, so I can avoid that interaction. Because the reason for soul release with branded, you want to simplify the game because you have a lot of power cards and power fusion monsters. And soul release, just getting rid of their graveyard interactions, just make it easier. So you can get rid of the whale, you can get rid of the princess, the 2 level 1s if they have a flame burge, and then the raging phoenix. It's something along the lines of that. And then their original for follow up. I know I said more than 5 cards, but it just kind of depends on like what your hand is and things like that. But it's very much a case by case. But getting rid of the link monsters and the level 1 monsters was pretty good all weekend, and nobody ever expected it.
Yeah, no, I feel like there's been a lot of different, like, people have been running the Shadal package, and to me, I feel like Soul Release is like is the best package to me because it's 3 cards. You don't invest 6. Obviously, with the App Clone package, you do get a pop. It's just 6 card commitment versus 3, and so I'm glad to hear Soul Release was great for you.
It was insane against like that matchup a lot. Like getting rid of the graveyard interactions that we don't really care about anyway in the first place, but just getting rid of the follow up, like the originals and the wanteds, like made the game a lot easier in the following turns. Because like you do get into a kind of grind game. You either get into a grind game situation or you just blow them out.
100%. So talk to me about these skill drains.
So we needed more going first cards. We felt like our going second was always really good because going second, you always take out. And I'm kind of debating this now because we can talk about it in my matchups. I did play a mirror, but I am not super confident gimmick puppet locking people going second. So I always take out the puppet, the Nadir servants, the Maximus, and the the fusion duplication. So going second, we had it figured out pretty well. But going first, I never liked the super polys. I put in the skill drains always. And the logic for that is I was talking to my teammate Gage Hopper, and the thing that we mentioned was like, man, what's a good going first card that I can play? And I wasn't in love with the thrust package cards like Different Dimension Ground, Eradicator, because I never thought those were better than setting fusion duplication.
Oh yeah, so you didn't really end up liking those thrust targets.
Yeah, and so I remember my friend was like, play Floodgates. And originally my go-to Floodgate in Branded was There Can Only Be One because it acts as a board breaker too. But I just saw Skill Drain and I'm like, this is a really good one. I'm gonna try it. And it actually in testing it was amazing, but in gameplay it never came up a lot. But I still think it's a really good choice just because most game 3s I puppet lock at people anyway, or I never got to a game 3, so it never mattered. But it's kind of like the Nibiru's and the skill drains. I never drew them, but in testing they were amazing. So if you want to pick up this deck, I'd highly recommend trying them because at the end of the day, we may not be able to wombo combo fuse, but 3,000 beaters do go pretty hard. I beat every fire player, but so I played a Branded in round 1. We got into time and we both Masquerade burned each other for 600, so we drew.
Wow.
And then round 2, I played against Fire King Snake Eyes, 2-0'd that guy. And then round 3, I played against Voiceless, and that's by far our best matchup. I remember that game 1, I went first, didn't puppet lock him, but I banished both his ritual monsters his first turn.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, how do you win from here on out? Round 4, I played against Fire King Snake Eyes, beat them. And then round 5, I played against Fire King. I played against Kashtira actually, and that got really interesting. But Brandon loss really carried the game because he wasn't able to resolve a birth ever.
That's a huge point that I've been thinking of, how lost is basically your birth out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he was never able to resolve loss. Loss is also the reason you get a lot of judge calls or people questioning you because a lot of people don't understand how it works still. Maybe because Brandon's just out of sight, out of mind. I don't know about after. I still think it's a really good meta call. And then round 6, we actually played against Andre Torres' team.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was not on Brandon though. I played against another pro player. I beat him 2-1 because game 3, my hand was the Owlbear, the Talents, the Called By, the Branded Fusion, the Nadir Servant.
Yes.
Like it's impossible to lose that hand. And then round 7, I actually got 2-0'd by another branded player who actually got featured. His name is Simon. And game 1, he comboed, and naturally, I have the droplets though, so I wasn't worried about getting puppet locked. But his last card in his hand was exchange, and he took my fusion duplication, set it, and then activated it, and then did an uninterrupted gimmick puppet lock.
Yeah, that's just super unlucky. He had like the goo. That's basically having cross out in the mirror equivalent.
Yeah, and then game 2, he double bestial dropleted me.
Oh boy. Yeah.
I thought those games were pretty out of hand for me. I don't think that's like a skill thing. I don't think that's a deck building thing. I just think like you're gonna have matches like that, especially at a very competitive YCS. If you guys look at the teams that did really well, like the top 16 was stacked. Like it was insane. Then round 8, I played against actually Asian Persuasion and Slim YGO.
Oh, nice.
They were on stun. Luckily, we have outs to that with like Super Poly, the droplets, Mirror Jade's a problem, and things like that. So that worked out really well, thank God. Then round 9, it was day 2. They didn't show up actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they just maybe it was too early in the morning and they just had too much fun the night before. It was Vegas, so we did expect that, and we did see other tables also like that, where the round 9 opponents just didn't show up. And then round 10, I played against Pure Snake Eyes, and I puppet locked him twice.
Yeah.
And I could have won game 2 a little bit easier. I just misplayed, and that's on me. But the deck's insane. Overall I went 9-1-1. The deck was insane. I always had an opportunity going second, and going first, like I just always felt like I could push through every hand trap if you play correctly. But if you don't play correctly with the deck, you definitely do get punished for it pretty hard. But every game is very winnable, and you don't really have a bad matchup.
Complete facts, brother. I'm glad. I'm like, no, you completely understand it, and you're. So, I guess with that being said, like, are very, very great deck profile, and like I just wanted to like ask, I guess, a final question on the deck build itself. You wouldn't put back in the bestials. You're fine. You didn't end up missing them, or maybe.
So moving forward, I think I might take out the Nibirus for the bestials. In the side deck specifically. I don't know if I do the Lubellion Sorenir play. I think I might if bestials see an increase in plays, because access to Branded Lost gets you lets you play around the bestials a little bit better. But I think with the Ryzen Voiceless deck, the voice deck, because it did like have a good representation, we expected that to be the 3rd represented deck. And actually it having good interactions into the Fire King and the Snake Eyes mirror, because this happened on stream, but if you bestial the Link Kariba, they don't have an Omni Negate.
Yes, which is crazy.
And then in the Fire King Snake Eyes one, you can bestial the what's it called? The Masquerena Engrave.
Yep.
So the bestials definitely have a little bit better of an interaction into those than I originally anticipated. So I definitely have to do more testing for it. Instead of skill drains, I might consider deck lockdown. The branded player I got 2-0'd by, he did deck lockdown just because he felt like it was a little bit more versatile. We were both on the same thought process as far as like, oh, let's just play Floodgates swing first. We just came to conclusions of different Floodgates. I think I might try a deck lockdown. But the amazing thing I like about Branded, and I love about your channel, is like every Branded list is always different. And that's what I love about the deck so much. Is everybody, like, I'm not the biggest component of Branded and High Spirits, but like I know some other people are. I know some people love Pot of Desires. I know some people love the Patchwork Engine. And that's what makes Branded, I think, like really innovative and have a really good like meta call and a matchup like perspective into this format, is because like you never know what version of Branded you're gonna get.
100%. They won't even know where to hand trap you sometimes. Like I've heard people start saying you have to imperm the Guignol or like ash the Guignol. Sub-brand version, obviously not, but it's, you know, with the different versions, I know what you mean, and it makes actually a very solid meta call, especially when it just has a frankly good matchup into the fire into like voiceless, as you said, and I think it has a pretty good matchup into Fire King. So
yeah, and the thing that came up a lot was like I would get ashed on the Brain Diffusion, I'd get imprimed on the Cartasia, and I would still gimmick puppet lock them.
Oh boy, yeah.
Like the cards are really good. I think in the future I might try like we'll see. I definitely have some spice that I definitely want to try. For sure. I want to try maybe the Bestials back in the main deck, but the thing about Branded is there's so many routes that you can pick, and like I'm so excited to try all of them.
Oh yeah, and thanks for the kind words about my channel, and I appreciate you coming on the channel, brother.
Absolutely.
You know, hope to see you back again. And with that being said, please guys leave some love in the comments, and be seeing you guys later. Have a good day. Did you know that I have channel memberships now? This is the best way that you can support the channel and get some awesome perks. You get access to the hidden Discord group chat where you get to ask me any questions about your decks. You get early deck lists, some early videos even, and exclusive emotes to use in the YouTube chat. And you get to duel me once a month. The best part is you get to support amazing branded and Yu-Gi-Oh content going forward. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for the memberships down below. Thanks for watching the video.